So today we are going to look at this PlayStation 1. It is one of, it's pretty much an early model. I can't remember the exact year on it. I've got quite a few of them which are working. I've had them all open to clean. It shows its age with a parallel port on it. I believe I can't remember what year they took them off, so I can't tell you. I can't give you an estimate. We'll find out. We'll find it out together. As an adventure. I'm sure there'll be a stamp on the board. Manufacturing date. Beside the point. But either way, this one's being deemed broken at some point by me. I'm not sure why. It probably wasn't reading the disc properly, or maybe it wasn't even turning altogether. I don't know. Either way, I've deemed it broken at some point, probably about 6 months ago or so. I'll take my word for it. So what we're going to do is we are going to put it to good use. We're going to take out the innards, the board, drive, everything. We're going to empty it out. We're just going to keep it for the case, and potentially keep the power supply in there because it's got a bit of a nice switch in there we can utilize and possibly use it for powering. What we're going to replace it with is this Raspberry Pi 3. Got it in this enclosure here because it's overclocked, and I don't know I doubt it's going to be very happy living in here overclocked without any thermal assistance on it. So we've got it in that. I have already preloaded this USB pen with about 60 gigabytes worth of PlayStation 1 games, and let's have a look. We've got PlayStation 1 games, we've got some N64 games, and I believe Master System Mega Drive has some freebies in there. So this is all fully loaded. This is all set up. Just a 4 gig boot drive, SD card in there, all the configurations with the RetroPie on, and all the games are on the memory pen. Games don't tend to work very well off the SD card because SD cards are, it's only good for sequential reading or something. I don't know. It's either way. The read speeds aren't very good on them in compared to the USB. So we've donated a USB pen to there. The plan of action is open it up, remove innards, potentially keep this board because I think it would be nice to keep as much of this as we can on the appearance wise. So I think it'd be nice to have this cable going in the I can't remember what you call this, the figure of 8 one, and tap off it on the inside. Maybe stick one of these chappies in. So step it down to the 5 volts required for this. This is a mains to 5 volts, 2.5 amps rated, so more than enough. Actually, it's about right for this because it's now overclocked. Then what we're going to do is we want to keep these original ports for using a proper controller on, because we would like to keep this thing going on here, and ideally have the capability of having 2 players on. What we don't want is a USB hub and buying some stupid no brand USB connectors, controllers, and plug into here, because that is cheating. This is actually a bit of annoyance. So this one caught me out, and it wasn't until I saw a video on YouTube that explained this to me, because one of those gotchas is that for this particular unit, this is player 1 and this is player 2. So I had controller plugged into this one. Yeah, it's player 1, controller 1. I think it goes in this one. Wrong. It goes in this one. So functionality doesn't work the same when you've got the controller plugged into this one. You don't get certain shortcut features to get you back into menus and whatnot when you're plugged into this one. So I was struggling with that one for a bit, but there was a YouTube video a guy who had this exact same unit, and he explained that, because that's something I probably wouldn't have tried. I probably would have just burnt the house down, because I couldn't figure out what the hell was going on. So we're going to strip this down. We can just about see the board in there, and we are going to solder these connectors up to the back of these ones, and probably get rid of this cable because I don't really need it, and we can just I've got a few little USB cable things lying around. We can make this much more neat. Much more neat? Neater. Make it neater. Yeah. Make it neater. And by neater I mean it's less of this going on. So we'll have a bit more of a direct between there to there, and then a little bit there going into there. But yes, we're after this board, and I believe it's going to be a very easy task. I like to believe it's going to be a very easy task to wire this, the back of here, up into here. So that will be task number 2. So let's get this open. Let's have a look inside, and I don't have a stand for this camera, so we are going to use the magic of video editing, and this will be open momentarily. I've got the beast open now. I've had a little look around, and I can't see any date stamps on it anywhere, anything obvious. I mean, it could be embedded in one of these little codes. I'm sure they decode to some sort of manufacturing stamp, but I can't see anything obvious. Anyway, so I've put it back together just so we can relive this discovery phase of my findings. So I've got this. We've got the laser disc. We've got the laser unit off. It was on there. Obviously, the first thing that draws your eye is this corrosion here, which I believe sort of matches up. It's. I think I've got pictures of this when I was cleaning it up, and I think this was just cased in gunk. I think something had been spilled in here, cork or some other liquid, sticky, horrible stuff. Anyway, it looked like it dripped down. I seem to remember this connector being a troublesome one. As you can see, there's brown stuff in the connector there. I seem to remember having issues getting that out, the cable out, on account of it being corroded. So we've got this obvious corrosion here. We can see some staining going on here in the plastic. Well, staining, it's dirt. I've done a very good job of cleaning that. Yeah. So when you take off the shield, I assume I've cleaned this quite a lot to try and bring it back to life. To no avail, obviously. I seem to remember this connector actually coming off the board and being resoldered back on. If we can focus. Zoomy. Yeah. I think at some point that had been resoldered back onto the board. Done quite a decent job there. But that's not helped, apparently. I'm gonna call this dead for now. I might keep it for spares or something, but chances are I'm not. Second question, we had a conversation around here, this power supply. So I was hoping that one of these connectors were going to be of a suitable voltage and have current capability to just draw the 5 volts from there. Doesn't look like we're going to be so lucky, on account of we have found the schematics for it. If we look across here, 8 volts and 3.5 volts. Absolutely 100% wrong. Well, we could put a regulator on here. Get that down to 5 volts, and even then, does it have the current capability? I can't bother to find out. So we are going to, what are we going to do with this? Because I think this is fine. I think this power supply is probably fine, and I would feel bad just sticking it in there for no reason, and putting in a good power supply into something that's not going to use it. I don't think that could sit well with me. I'll have a think about that one, because I would like this switch in here to use on the case as a master power switch, like shut it down through the software and then use this as a master power switch. That seems nice, and I don't want to have to remount this switch somewhere. So I think I might just leave this in here. I might just bite the bullet. Maybe I'll strip off some of these components. It'll make me feel better, I think, if I were to recover some of these caps, and I'm sure something along here will come useful at some point. Hypothetically, we have gotten rid of this. Hypothetically, we have this in, which is I'm sure I'll be able to find a lovely home for it in between any of these little things here. I'm sure that'll work absolutely fine. Hypothetically, we've got that there. We're going to have this in here, much more compact. Well, actually the aisle's on this side, so it might make sense to utilize these vents here. Maybe just stick it upside down like so, and then I've got access to these ports here and a bit of ventilation for it. I don't know. I think what I'll do is we'll take this apart and get it down to a bit more of the size that they're going to be, because this is no good. I haven't actually looked at this yet to see what the solder points are going to look like. What for connecting up to this chappy. So what have we got? We've got this chap open. I've not looked inside it yet, but we'll get to it together, I'm sure. And we have this controller adapter open. Fortunately, it wasn't ultrasonically welded, it's just a few screws, and these didn't really want to come off, but a little bit of the bit of leveraging and gentle persuasion, it just practically fell off really. I don't know if I pointed this out earlier on, but it's more of this liquid residue that was left behind, I suppose, from whatever the damage was. Back to this, the debate on this. The answer to this is we are either going to have to use all of it and potentially step this down to 5 volts. So we looked at the schematic earlier on, and that, I believe it is pin 1, which is this one, this side. Pin 1 is 8 volts. Now I might use one of the a buck converter to step that down to 5 volts, and hopefully we can draw enough amps, and that'd be nice to use this actually. One of them is a signal as well. So when you push this reset button, it sends a signal to one of those pins. We'll look it up. So that'd be quite nice, because I'll be able to use that signal wire maybe to the Raspberry Pi to get it to do something. I don't know what. Maybe to get it come out of the game, back to the menu, or I mean there is a keypad shortcut for that, but I don't know. I'll have a think about that. If anyone wants to make a suggestion, feel free, I guess. But yeah, I'll get around to doing that. I'll solder attach a wire to there and see how much current I can draw from that pin before it starts to drop the voltage. I've got this out, and to answer our question, the moulding marks show that yes, they'd gone through 97, and I'm not quite sure what each of these dots mean. I mean, well, there's 12 of them, so they're going to be months. But unless for some reason maybe they missed one, unless they, I don't know, Maybe they forgot to scratch up the moulding. I don't know why there's that missing, or why there'd be those two missing, like whether it's January, February. I suppose just off the top of my head I thought, oh, I will just stick some wires up here and or behind here and stick it up to here, but obviously that's not going to work on account of it being this type of connector. Again, I can't remember what type of connector this is, but either way it's AC, and the idea behind these connectors is that it's convenient because you can put it in either that way or put the wire in the other way around, and once it gets through here, it goes to this, it rectifies it to DC, mains voltage DC, and then it uses these components here to step it down to the appropriate voltages on the low voltage side. So the options we have is to tap off there, or to cut this in half to make space for this to go in here, and then stick a connector on there. I don't know. Maybe this won't go inside. Maybe I could put a micro USB connector on here somewhere, power it through there. Actually, I'll probe this first. If we can get current out of here, and we'll go with that, because it's going to be easier with this, and we can utilize this, and we'll have the original connector taking up the slot in the back of the console as well. We've got the power supply out here on the bench. No touchy this side. Otherwise, you'll have a bad day basically. So we've got our mains going in here. It's not plugged in yet. We've got our mains coming in here, and we'll get to this pin, which is let's just get rid of this solder for a short. That'll be good, wouldn't it? I've just soldered onto the pads, the pins on either side of this connector. Wire comes out, connects up to this buck converter, which should step it down to anything up to, I think, I can't remember these are rated to. It's kind of as 12 or 24 volts down to 5 volts. I want to say 12, because this is the sort of thing you would see in your car with your stick your USB charger in. Buck converter 12, 5. So we've got a nice convenient USB port mounted on this side of it. Nice convenient USB port on the side of it. We've got our inline meter, which should give us some information on the screen, on this little puny screen, of voltage and current. And then we've got our load, which this one goes up to 2 amps. We can switch it up to 2 amps, so we can put a 2 amp load on here. Hopefully 2 is enough, although our use case will get up to 2.5, but we can just plug it into here and find out what happens. But we'll put this sort of synthetic load on here for now, and we'll see if it handles 2. If it handles 2, we'll plug the Raspberry Pi in there and see if it works. And I'm sure either this or the Raspberry Pi will let me know if the voltage drops. I'm going to feel pretty stupid doing all this in a second when this doesn't even turn on or something. Okay, we've got quite happily got an amp on there. This switch to 1 amp, so I'll clear it up 1 amp, and still perfectly fine voltage there. Switch up to 2 amps. I think it's going to happen. RIP. I think overcurrent circuit protection's on this. I wonder if we can bypass that. I have a feeling it might be this, and I can't be bothered to find a replacement for that. This might be a showstopper, basically. So we'll try this again. Oh, that's interesting. maybe it's... Oh, I nearly touched it again. No, I'm not getting anything. Interesting. This might be a no-go, unfortunately. We could just have a panel mount micro USB. I think I actually have one of those about for another project which never got finished. Panel mount micro USB going in straight to the Pi. That's probably for the best because this is unfortunately not going. Although we might leave it in anyway for the sake of this switch. Well, we'll see. As a side note, just as I was taking this apart, this is not the bottleneck, apparently. Well, it shouldn't be. This is rated up to 3 amps, apparently. So that should not be the bottleneck, just in case you were thinking that, you, the viewer, were thinking, hey, you didn't rule out this not being able to. No, this should be enough to, it's rated up to 3 amps, apparently. So my data sheet tells me, but yeah, I mean, we could easily confirm that, but I'm not going to. But that's not the issue. I know that's probably crossing your mind right now. Well, it was. Maybe I don't know. Might have been. I didn't find the panel mount that I was looking for. I have no idea where that's gone. I had a rummage around. Anyway, I've had a rummage around my parts. The first thing I came up with is, if it's still here. Basically, it was a tiny little breakout board. That's what it was, for a micro USB. And I was thinking about how I could mount it in here, maybe make a little panel for it. But I wasn't particularly happy with that. I think it's just gonna look really shit. Maybe it wouldn't. But what I've opted for instead, which is almost definitely gonna look a bit shit, I think it's gonna look neater in the long run, is putting in one of these little fellas, what you call them. I don't know where I've got this from. I'm terrified. I've taken this from somewhere and put it on put it on the side of, this is ready to go back together again. Where have I got that from? I have no idea where I've got this from. I am really worried though that I've taken this out of something while it's been fixed, and then it's ended up in a pile of, parts. I don't know. So what I think would work quite well, it'll work really well, is this. Look how neat that is, honestly. Perfect. Oh yeah. Just like that. No. But as you'll see, that if it's on its side, this the width of this cutout is actually pretty spot on. So I think what I'll do is let's bring it out a bit. Is cut a section out here. Cut a section of plastic out here, and it'll bring the case down around this. This seems like size-wise it's going to be pretty big, but then you're going to have a big lead on the back rather than a little USB thing. But you know what? This is more robust. I'd rather have a big, sturdy connector rather than have a little micro USB lead. Those things are like, I mean, this is overkill, really. I mean, the little figure of 8 thing connector, that was pretty good. We'll do this. It's going to look a bit daft having this big chunky cable come out the back, so I think I'll have to try and find a cable that's not like rated for 13 amps. That's going to be like half an inch thick, because that's be ridiculous, really. So I found one that's a bit skinnier and it won't look so daft coming out the back. Hopefully no thicker than a HDMI lead. It'll be okay. Today is tomorrow, and we have been busy knocking out this piece of plastic for putting in this pot. There we go. So as you see, it doesn't look particularly, it's not an amazing job, but that'll be covered up with this lip. the cover up, and we'll neaten up this edge, and once this is glued in, epoxied in or something, it'll look absolutely ballin'. We've connected up this controller adapter to the ports. I'll give it a little test before letting you know how it went. And it's a bit of a strange one. And I'm not quite sure what's going on, so I think it might be... In fact, I'll show you. So, switch on the Raspberry Pi. So it's booted up. The first thing you notice is that there's no LED on, but you can turn on the analog for the controller, so this button does respond. However, what it does now is it says that there's no gamepads detected, which is curious. What I have done is gone through these connections and ensured that each of them, there are no shorts and there is continuity between the correct joint, and everything looks fine. I've reconnected this USB cable and I am about 98% sure I've got the data lines the right way around, the green and the white ones. I might try the other way around. I mean, the colours are right, the colour codes are right, but who knows? Unfortunately, I don't have any footage of me taking that apart to double check that I've got that the right way around, but how wrong can it be? An interesting development is that I ran this command, the lsusb command, with and then without the adapter plugged in, and the results of both of them are exactly the same. So it would look like that the Raspberry Pi isn't detecting the adapter at all. Hey presto, turns out the diagram I received my data from about the colour coding for the data wires on the USB were the wrong way around, and that's what you get when you just follow random Google images that you search for. So there we are, Personal Communication Systems Inc. Dual PSX adapter. Wicked.
How about if you and I go for a little walk outside, huh? Let the puppy stay and eat their food. Stop it! There's no need to fear. Because Joe Chin is here. Hey, it's Joe. I have traveled the 7 seas. I have crossed every mountain known to man, and I know that the mighty powers that I have are enough for jerks like you. Welcome to the Fruits Dojo. I trust that you are here to redeem yourself and to acquire skills that are necessary for your goals. Are shall give you my best. But first, let's see if you can challenge my right.
Kick, punch, it's all in the mind. If you wanna test me, until you find the things I'll teach ya, sure to beat ya. Nevertheless, you'll get a lesson from teacher. Now kick,
Kick, kick, kick, kick, kick, kick.
punch,
Punch, punch, punch, punch, punch, punch.
jump,
Chop, 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 chop.
block. Once more now, kick,
Kick, kick, kick, kick, kick, kick.
punch,
Punch, punch, punch, punch, punch, punch.
jump,
Chop, 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 chop,
and
chop.
block. Don't get cocky, it's gonna get rocky. We're gonna move down to the next jockey. Now duck.
Duck, 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 duck.
Moving forward, I have decided to just snap this board in half. It broke quite in half quite nicely. Just the old flexi, and it snapped straight across here. Just to make way for this new adapter to come in, and that's why I've just soldered that into this doodad, which steps it down to the 5 volts. I have then soldered this output wire to this switch, which then goes out to this micro USB lead. I've just put a bit of tape on here for a bit of strain relief, because these wires, these connectors, were really quite frail, so I didn't want to like flex it around and find that it snapped or whatever, so that would be nice. Next is what's next? Next we're going to mount these controller thingies in and see about fixing the board down. I put some double-sided tape on here, and that's fixed that quite nicely. I'm going to put these back in, and then we're going to look at putting this HDMI connector back in there. We'll see which one looks better in that one or that one. Either way, we'll cut the plastic out of the top case, and we'll stick that in next. And we won't be far off then, actually. And then when we put the lid back on, we'll be I don't know, I don't want to like epoxy this in, because when the lid comes off it'll be affixed to this, so I won't really be able to maintain it. It'd be nice if I left some sort of connector in line there, but I don't actually think I've got any. But that might be something down the line to do. It's just a little plug on there, so if I need to maintain it I can just disconnect it. Some quick release thingy. Time for a future one, future thought. Moving on and upwards. As you can see, I've made a slight compromise on the location of parts. This is a rough idea of how it's going to lay out. This couldn't really go any further over this way because of all this that's inside the case. The eject button mechanisms and the hinges and stuff, it was just all interfering in this area here, so we've moved it over into the middle, and it's a squash and a squeeze, as they say. What have we got? We have this chappie mounted in now. He's got his screws in, the wire, this cause quite a long wire, I've just routed it round, plug it into there, USB's in. Also I've had to extend this USB power, which helps it reach around this area. It was never going to reach, even if it was over here or right here, to be honest. It was way too short, so I've just extended the wire. I've also mounted the HDMI cable into the case. I've filed just out some slots and whatnot, and the screws are mounted in there quite nicely. Although it looks a bit wonky there, but you know what? It's perfectly fine. Didn't realise it was going to interfere with the hinge, or this like stop mechanism for the door open. So when it opens up, it stops the door there. So I couldn't exactly go removing that. So I've just managed to take away just enough, and it's in there fairly securely. It doesn't look perfect, but you know what? I think it's going to be fine. We shall see. So I think getting this together is going to be quite the challenge. especially this HDMI lead that's going to go in. And it's quite a thick lead as well, so it's going to have to kind of go around here and then route around and then squash into there. So it's going to be quite a tight turn here. On the lid, I've taken out the standoff that goes into this bit here because I think it's going to... when I did a dry run, the HDMI lead couldn't... Like, the turn was too tight to avoid this, so I think the best thing to do was just to take it out straight away. I think that's it, really. I will report back once that's done. You and I get to experience this initial boot together. So it's all connected. I've got the HDMI and the power connected in the back. And we're going to plug in the power. Hopefully it's... I've got the power there, and... Oh, where she goes. One thing I did forget to do, and I'm not going to bother doing, I don't think, is connecting to this LED. That would have been a nice touch. But it took quite a bit of effort to actually get the thing closed, to get the whole shell on, and... Oh, did you hear that? Oh, yes. It did take a little while to get it all together again, so I don't really fancy taking it all apart just to wire this up. Maybe down the line, if I can be bothered, we'll get back to that one. Lovely. And there we have it. Complete, pretty much. I managed to source a panel for this parallel port. Managed to scavenge it. I'm going to have to replace it on the other console I've pinched it from, but hey ho. Yeah, that's worked out quite well, I think. It's got a... Let me just get the light in here. Not perfectly straight, but you know what? Close enough. As for this doodad, we can just about see in there, I managed to push in those pins. It's like, I don't know if you can just about see it in there, but there's like these flaps on the inside, and you push it in, and it hooks onto the back of the case. So now this is rigid as frig. It's not going anywhere. So there's some on the other side as well, and it's just hooked onto the inside of the plastic. If it actually came down to it and I needed to take this case off, I can undo these screws for this HDMI port, and once I've got the lid off, I could bend those pins back through, and it should unclip. So that's fantastic. Like I said, the only downside, the only disappointing factor to this whole thing is that I did forget to even consider the wiring that LED up. Never mind. I say maybe at some point I'll open it back up again to hook up that LED up to the Pi. It shouldn't be too big of a deal. It should just hook it up to the 5 volt or 3 volt rail and sticking a resistor in there, and hey ho, in it goes. But that's it. I think this video has turned out a lot longer than I thought it would do, but we've covered it quite a lot. We've gone through the whole, all the stages of the development of this I don't know, Raspberry Pi, PlayStation Pi, Retro Pi, whatever the hell you want to call it. We've gone through all the stages of it with the original console. They went through considerations. We've planned, had some plans. We went through all the iterations of those plans together. So hopefully you've learned something. I know I've learned a few things, and it's been a bit fun, to be honest. Until next time.